Billionaire CEO receives a shocking call at the altar: his ex is giving birth to twins. The grand ballroom of Riverview Estate fell silent as Ethan Blackwood's phone vibrated against his chest. 300 guests held their breath. The minister paused, confusion crossing his face. Ethan's hand trembled as he saw the name illuminating his screen: Mara Collins. A woman he hadn't spoken to in 11 months. "I'm sorry," he whispered to his bride, stepping away from the altar. When he answered, the voice on the other end was breathless, pained. "Ethan, they came early." "Mara? What? Who came early?" "The twins, Ethan." "Your twins." "I'm in labor." The phone slipped from his fingers, clattering against marble. His perfectly orchestrated life collapsed in 4 simple words. Have you ever had your entire life shattered in a single moment? What would you do if everything you believed was built on lies? Today's story reveals how manipulation and miscommunication can destroy what matters most. Stay with me to discover if Ethan can repair what was broken and become the father his unexpected twins deserve. If you're new to this channel, welcome to Mr. Steven Stories. I share powerful stories that touch the heart and teach important life lessons. Please take a moment to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new story. Your support helps our community grow. Now, let's dive into this incredible journey of truth, deception, and second chances. Charleston society called it the wedding of the decade. Riverview Estate gleamed with crystal chandeliers reflecting against polished marble. White roses and orchids cascaded from antique silver vases. Outside, the Ashley River caught the golden light of a perfect September afternoon. Ethan Blackwood stood at the altar, the embodiment of success. At 34, he'd expanded the Blackwood family conglomerate into tech dominance. The financial press called him ruthless, brilliant. His mother called him the perfect heir. His $600 haircut and custom tuxedo completed the image his family had crafted since birth. But his hands wouldn't stop trembling. "Nervous, brother?" Julian Hale whispered beside him, straightening Ethan's bow tie. 20 years of friendship made Julian the closest thing to family Ethan trusted. "Just eager to get this over with," Ethan replied, scanning the audience. His mother Victoria sat in the front row, regal in Chanel, her smile tight with triumph. The bride, Caroline Westridge, daughter of Senator Westridge, was exactly what the Blackwood legacy required. Beautiful, refined, connected. Their marriage would merge old money with political power. Photographs were already sold to exclusive magazines. Press releases prepared. Stock prices would rise on Monday. Yet as the music swelled and guests rose, Ethan felt nothing but a hollow ache in his chest. The same emptiness that had haunted him for 11 months. The doors opened. Caroline appeared, resplendent in white. The perfect bride for a perfect ceremony that felt utterly wrong. One step forward. Then another. The script demanded he smile. So he did. His phone vibrated against his chest. Ethan ignored it. The processional continued. The phone vibrated again, insistent. Julian noticed, raising an eyebrow. Ethan shook his head slightly. Caroline reached the altar, her father placing her hand in Ethan's. Her fingers were cold. Or perhaps his were. The minister began. "Dearly beloved." The phone vibrated a third time. Something like panic fluttered in Ethan's chest. No one called him repeatedly unless it was an emergency. "One moment," he murmured, reaching inside his jacket. The name on his screen, Mara Collins. The room tilted. 11 months of silence, and she called now? "Ethan?" Caroline whispered, her smile faltering. "I have to take this," he said, stepping back. "I'm sorry." 300 guests watched in stunned silence as Ethan Blackwood, heir to billions, walked away from his bride to answer a phone call. Mara?" His voice was barely audible. "Ethan, they came early." Her voice, so familiar despite the months, was strained with pain. "What are you talking about? Who came early?" A sharp intake of breath, then, "The twins, Ethan. Your twins. I'm in labor." The phone slipped from his fingers. The clatter against marble echoed through the silent ballroom. "Ethan?" Caroline called, confusion turning to anger. "What's happening?" But Ethan couldn't answer. His mind raced backward, trying to make sense of four impossible words. Twins. Labor. His. Julian retrieved the phone, glancing at the screen. "Ethan, who is Mara Collins?" The question broke his paralysis. "Someone I need to get to. Right now." Victoria Blackwood rose from her seat, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "Ethan, return to the altar immediately. This is unacceptable." For the first time in his life, Ethan looked at his mother and felt nothing but cold clarity. "No, Mother. This wedding is unacceptable." He turned to Caroline. "I'm sorry. I can't marry you." Then he was running, ignoring the gasps, the flashing cameras, the collapse of everything he'd been raised to value. In the parking lot, he threw himself into his Aston Martin. The engine roared to life, and Charleston blurred as he accelerated toward the highway. South. To Atlanta. To Mara. To twins he never knew existed. The interstate stretched before him like a confessional. 300 miles to rewrite everything he thought he knew. Ethan's hands gripped the steering wheel as memories flooded back. Not of Caroline or the abandoned ceremony, but of Mara. Mara Collins had entered his life like an accident, the only unplanned moment he'd allowed himself in years. A health policy summit in Charleston. His $1,000 suit. Her coffee cup colliding with his chest. Her horror-struck expression as brown liquid spread across blue Italian wool. "I'm so sorry," she'd stammered, grabbing napkins with trembling hands. He should have been furious. Instead, he'd laughed. A genuine laugh that surprised them both. "It's just fabric," he'd said, taking the napkins from her trembling fingers. "I'll pay for the cleaning," she insisted, mortification coloring her cheeks. "A suit for a coffee seems fair," he'd replied, surprising himself with the invitation. "Let me buy you another. One that stays in the cup." Her laugh was unguarded, real. "I think I've done enough damage for one day." "Then dinner," he'd pressed. "To prove I'm not the corporate monster my reputation suggests." Her eyes, intelligent, skeptical, had studied him. Not his wealth or position, but him. "Tomorrow. 7. Somewhere without white tablecloths." Now, speeding south with his phone buzzing endlessly with calls from Julian, his mother, the press, Ethan realized that coffee spill had been the first honest moment in his carefully orchestrated life. Their first date lasted 6 hours. A small Ethiopian restaurant where they ate with their hands, defying every rule of his polished upbringing. No photographers. No performance. Just conversation that flowed like they'd known each other for years. "Why community health?" he'd asked, watching her eyes light up. "Because healthcare shouldn't be a privilege," she'd answered simply. "I grew up watching my grandmother ration her insulin. She died because she couldn't afford to live." Her voice hadn't wavered. "I decided no one else should face that choice." He'd felt something unfamiliar, humility. His world was mergers and market shares. Hers was saving lives on shoestring budgets. "What drives you?" she'd asked, turning the mirror on him. He'd almost given his rehearsed answer. "Building legacy. Creating innovation." Instead, truth spilled out. "Proving I'm more than my family's name," he'd admitted. "My mother sees me as a chess piece. My father saw me as his successor. I wanted to be something of my own. Mara had reached across the table, her hand covering his. You already are. That touch, simple, honest, had unraveled something in him. 6 months dissolved like sugar in rain. He'd rearranged board meetings to fly to Atlanta. She'd driven to Charleston on weekends. They'd talked about futures that weren't supposed to intersect, her community programs, his corporate expansions. Somehow, they'd fit. Come with me to the gala, he'd said one evening, his fingers tracing patterns on her shoulder as they lay tangled in hotel sheets. Mara had tensed. Your mother will be there. She'll love you. She'll tolerate me, Mara had corrected. There's a difference. She'd been right. Victoria Blackwood had smiled with her mouth, not her eyes, during their one brief meeting. Mara wasn't from their world, old money, political connections, strategic marriages. She was other. I don't care what she thinks, Ethan had said, meaning it. You will, Mara had whispered. Eventually, you will. He'd kissed her to silence the fear in her voice. And his own. The highway signs flashed past. Atlanta. 120 miles. Ethan pressed the accelerator harder. His phone rang again. Julian. This time, he answered. Where the hell are you going? Julian demanded. Atlanta. Piedmont Hospital, I think. I need to find out which one. Ethan, what's happening? Who is Mara Collins? Ethan swallowed hard. Someone I loved. Someone I lost. She says she's giving birth to my twins. Silence stretched between them. That's impossible, Julian finally said. You haven't seen her in what, a year? And she never told you she was pregnant? 11 months, Ethan corrected. And she says she tried to tell me. Another pause. The timing works, doesn't it? Yes, Ethan whispered, his throat tight. Your mother is apoplectic, Julian said. The press is having a field day. Blackwood heir abandons altar. Caroline's father is threatening lawsuits. I don't care. You don't mean that, Julian pressed. This is everything you've built. Your reputation, the company's stock. I don't care, Ethan repeated, firmer this time. Find out which hospital in Atlanta. Call me back. He hung up, the weight of Julian's unspoken question hovering. How could Mara be pregnant with his children and he not know? The unraveling had begun so quietly. Her calls going to voicemail. Her texts undelivered. Emails bouncing back. He'd been immersed in the biggest deal of his career, independence from his family's control through a major acquisition. His assistant had assured him Mara understood his silence. His mother had praised his renewed focus. Eventually, he'd stopped seeing Mara's name on his phone. Had assumed she'd grown tired of waiting. Had she really tried to reach him? All these months? Atlanta's skyline appeared on the horizon as his phone buzzed with Julian's text. Piedmont Hospital. Maternity ward. She arrived by ambulance 45 minutes ago. The next text came a moment later. Be careful, Ethan. Something's not right. If you're enjoying this story about unexpected twists and second chances, please help our channel grow by hitting the like button and subscribing to Mr. Steven Stories. Every subscriber helps us create more meaningful content. Now, let's continue with Ethan's journey as he races to discover the truth. The hospital corridors seemed endless, sterile white and antiseptic green blurring as Ethan ran. The elevator moved too slowly. His heart hammered against his ribs, each beat a question. How? Why? What if? At the nurse's station, he gasped, Mara Collins. She's in labor. Twins. The nurse looked up, eyebrows raised at his disheveled appearance, tuxedo rumpled, bow tie hanging loose, hair wild from running his fingers through it repeatedly. "Are you family?" she asked. "I'm." What was he? Ex-boyfriend? Estranged father? The father, he finished, the word strange on his tongue. Her expression softened. "Room 512. She's been asking for you." The door to 512 stood partially open. Inside, Ethan heard a pained cry that froze him in place. Then a familiar voice, Renee, Mara's cousin, saying, "You're doing great, sweetie. Just breathe." He pushed the door open. Mara lay in the hospital bed, sweat dampening her curls, face contorted in pain. Renee stood beside her, holding her hand. Both women looked up as he entered. Renee's expression hardened. "You actually came." Mara's eyes, wide with pain and disbelief, met his. "Ethan?" Another contraction seized her. She gripped the bed rail, a low moan escaping her lips. Ethan moved without thinking, crossing to her side. "I'm here," he said, reaching for her hand. Renee intercepted him. "You don't get to sweep in after months of silence and play the hero." "Renee, please," Mara gasped between breaths. "Let him stay." The doctor entered then, taking in the tension with a practiced glance. "Ms. Collins, the twins are coming faster than expected. We need to move you to delivery now." Ethan watched helplessly as they wheeled Mara away, her eyes finding his one last time before the doors closed. 6 weeks early, Renee said, arms crossed, staring at him with undisguised contempt. "She's been terrified they wouldn't make it." "Where were you?" "I didn't know," Ethan said, his voice hollow. "I never got any messages. I never knew she was pregnant." Renee's laugh was bitter. "Right. She called you. Texted you. Emailed you. When nothing worked, she drove to Charleston, where your doorman wouldn't let her up. Your office assistant wouldn't put her through. Even your friend Julian just offered excuses." Julian's text flashed in Ethan's mind, "Something's not right." "That can't be true," he whispered. "Julian would have told me." Renee's phone chimed. She glanced at it, then at Ethan. "They're taking her for an emergency C-section. Complications." Her voice broke slightly. "If anything happens to her or those babies because of your games." "I swear to you," Ethan said, desperation edging his voice, "I never knew." "Someone must have." He stopped, ice spreading through his veins as realization dawned. "My mother." "What?" "My mother," he repeated, pulling out his phone and dialing Julian's number. When his friend answered, Ethan's voice was deadly calm. "Julian, I need you to check something for me. Go to my office. Check my assistant's computer. Look for any record of calls or messages from Mara Collins in the past 11 months. Ethan, what are you thinking? Just do it. Now." While they waited, Ethan paced the small room, his mind racing. Victoria Blackwood had never approved of Mara. Had made it clear Mara wasn't suitable for the Blackwood legacy. Was it possible? Had his mother actually interfered to this extent? 30 excruciating minutes later, Julian called back. "It's worse than you thought," he said without preamble. "Your assistant has been intercepting Mara's calls, texts, emails, everything, on your mother's orders. There are folders, Ethan. Recordings of voicemails. Screenshots of texts. Even a handwritten letter Mara sent to the office that your mother instructed your assistant to destroy." The floor seemed to tilt beneath Ethan's feet. What did the letter say? A pause. That she was pregnant. With twins. That they deserved to know their father. The phone slipped from Ethan's grasp. Renee caught it before it hit the floor, putting it to her ear. "Hello? Yes, this is Renee, Mara's cousin. She listened, her expression shifting from hostility to shock. I see. Yes, I'll tell him. She ended the call, handing the phone back to Ethan, her eyes newly uncertain. Your friend says he's bringing evidence. Says your mother orchestrated all of this. Before Ethan could respond, a nurse appeared in the doorway. Mr. Blackwood? You can see them now. The delivery room was quiet save for the steady beep of monitors. Mara lay propped against pillows, exhaustion etched in every line of her face. Beside her bed stood two clear bassinets, each holding a tiny bundle. They're small but stable, the nurse said softly. 4 pounds, 2 ounces and 4 pounds, 3 ounces. The boy has a slight respiratory issue we're monitoring, but the girl is breathing well on her own. Boy. Girl. Twins. His children. Mara's eyes fluttered open as he approached. You're still here, she whispered, surprise evident in her voice. I'm not going anywhere, he replied, throat tight. She studied his face. You really didn't know, did you? He shook his head, unable to speak past the knot in his throat. I thought you abandoned us, she said, tears welling. I thought what we had meant nothing to you. It meant everything, he managed. It still does. Her gaze shifted to the bassinets. Do you want to meet them? The nurse carefully lifted one tiny bundle, placing it in Ethan's arms before he could process what was happening. 5 pounds of warm, breathing miracle, wrapped in a pink blanket. His daughter. She was so small, her face still puffy from birth, a wisp of dark hair peeking from beneath her cap. Her eyes, when they blinked open briefly, were the unfocused blue of all newborns. She has your jawline, Mara said softly. She's perfect, Ethan whispered, or replacing every other emotion. The door opened, and Julian entered, a laptop under his arm. His expression softened at the tableau before him, Ethan holding his daughter, Mara in the hospital bed, the second bassinet holding his son. I brought everything, Julian said, lifting the laptop slightly. Proof of what happened. Mara's brow furrowed. What proof? What happened? Ethan carefully returned his daughter to the nurse, who placed her back in the bassinet. Then he pulled a chair to Mara's bedside, taking her hand in his. My mother happened, he said quietly. Julian found evidence that she ordered my assistant to block all communication from you. Calls, texts, emails. Even a letter you sent. Mara's eyes widened. The doorman who wouldn't let me up? The receptionist who said you were traveling for months? Julian nodded grimly. All orchestrated by Victoria. She even had your number blocked on Ethan's phone so you couldn't reach him directly. Why? Mara asked, her voice breaking. Why would she do that? Because you weren't part of her plan for me, Ethan said, bitterness edging his words. You weren't Caroline Westridge, daughter of Senator Westridge. You weren't the suitable match she'd chosen. So she erased me, Mara whispered. Made me disappear. And me, Ethan added. The real me. The one who loved you. Julian set the laptop on the bedside table. It's all here. Every intercepted message. Every deleted voicemail. Your ultrasound images that your assistant forwarded to Victoria instead of you, Ethan. Mara's hand tightened around Ethan's. She knew about the twins? Julian nodded, his expression grim. She knew everything. Ethan's phone buzzed, his mother calling for the 20th time since he'd fled the wedding. This time, he answered, putting it on speaker. Ethan Alexander Blackwood, Victoria's voice was razor-sharp. Where are you? Do you have any idea of the damage you've done? The press is having a field day. Caroline is distraught. Her father is threatening to pull his support for the merger. You will return to Charleston immediately, Anne. I'm in Atlanta, Ethan interrupted, his voice cold. At the hospital. With Mara Collins. And my newborn twins. Silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. I see. Victoria's voice shifted to something calculated. Well, these things happen. We'll handle it discreetly. A generous support arrangement. Perhaps a trust fund for the children, provided paternity is established, of course. Then you can return to Charleston and wheel. No, Mother, Ethan cut in again. There will be no discreet arrangement. No returning to Charleston to salvage your perfect merger. I know what you did. Julian found the emails. The intercepted messages. Everything. Another silence, then, I did what was necessary to protect you. To protect the Blackwood legacy. She wasn't suitable. She was the only real thing in my life, Ethan said, his voice breaking. And you took that from me. From us. In the bassinet, his son began to fuss, tiny hands waving. The nurse lifted him, checking his monitors before offering him to Mara, who cradled him close. You have grandchildren, Ethan continued, watching his son settle against Mara's chest. A grandson and a granddaughter. But I'm not sure you deserve to know them. Don't be dramatic, Ethan. Of course I'll acknowledge them. Once paternity is established. That's not your decision anymore, Ethan said firmly. Nothing about my life is your decision anymore. He ended the call, placing his phone on the table. The silence in the room felt cleansing somehow. What happens now? Mara asked quietly, her eyes on their son. Now we figure out how to be parents, Ethan replied. If you'll let me. Mara's gaze shifted to his, searching. And what about us? Ethan shook his head. I don't know. I broke your trust, even if unwittingly. I wasn't there when you needed me most. I can't expect you to forgive that overnight. No, she agreed. You can't. But I want to try, he continued. Not just for them, but for us. If there's any chance you might someday trust me again. Mara was silent for a long moment, her hand gently stroking their son's back. We start as co-parents, she finally said. The rest, we'll see. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. But it was a beginning. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to like this video and leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. Your engagement helps our channel reach more people who love meaningful stories. Now let's continue with Ethan and Mara's journey as they navigate the challenges of unexpected parenthood and broken trust. The first week passed in a blur of hospital corridors, beeping monitors, and whispered conversations with neonatologists. The twins remained in the NICU, their lungs not quite ready for the world. Elijah, the firstborn, required a tiny oxygen mask. Noelle breathed easier but struggled to maintain her temperature. Ethan cancelled meetings, delegated responsibilities, and ignored the barrage of calls from his PR team. The press had a field day. Blackwood heir abandons altar for secret family. His mother's carefully crafted image of the perfect succession shattered overnight. He didn't care. In those 7 days, Ethan learned more about himself than in 34 years of boardrooms and business deals. He learned he could function on 90 minutes of sleep. That the smell of hand sanitizer could become comforting. That his heart could physically ache watching his son struggle to breathe. Most importantly, he learned that nothing, not wealth, power, or legacy, mattered compared to the fierce, primal need to protect the 3 people in room 512. On the 8th day, Ethan arrived with coffee to find Mara cradling Noelle, a bottle tilted to the tiny girl's mouth. Her face glowed with exhaustion and love. They're letting her try feeding by mouth, Mara explained, her voice hushed with wonder. The doctor says it's a good sign. Ethan placed the coffee on the bedside table and moved to the second bassinet where Elijah slept, his little chest rising and falling beneath a tangle of monitoring wires. "Has he been off the oxygen today?" Ethan asked, gently touching his son's impossibly small hand. "For 2 hours this morning," Mara replied. "They'll try again this afternoon." She adjusted Noelle's position. "Could you burp her? I need to pump for Eli's next feeding." Ethan froze. He'd watched the nurses handle the twins but hadn't actually held either since that first day. His hands that signed billion-dollar contracts, suddenly felt enormous and clumsy. Mara seemed to sense his hesitation. "Just support her head and pat gently between her shoulders." With trembling fingers, Ethan accepted his daughter, cradling her against his shoulder. She weighed nothing, a feather wrapped in cotton. Her tiny mouth opened in a perfect O as she yawned against his neck. "Like this?" he asked, his palm spanning her entire back as he patted. "Perfect," Mara said, a small smile softening her exhausted features. They worked in companionable silence, Mara preparing bottles, Ethan burping Noelle. A nurse entered to check Elijah's monitors, then helped Mara attempt his first bottle feeding. It was strangely domestic, utterly foreign to Ethan's experience, yet somehow more right than anything he'd known. "We need to talk about arrangements," Mara said finally, once both twins were settled. "When they're discharged." Reality crashed back. They weren't a family, not in the traditional sense. They were two people connected by circumstances and tiny humans, navigating an impossible situation. "Of course," Ethan replied, setting down his cooling coffee. "I've been looking at properties near your apartment. Something with enough space for the twins and a home office for me. I can work remotely most days." Mara's eyebrows rose. "You're moving to Atlanta?" "Of course I am," Ethan said simply. "My children are here. You're here. But your company can be run from anywhere." He leaned forward, elbows on knees. "Mara, I've missed 11 months of this pregnancy. I wasn't there when you needed me. I'm not missing another day of their lives if I can help it." She studied him, her expression unreadable. "And your mother? The merger? That woman at the altar?" Ethan winced at the mention of Caroline. "I've spoken with Caroline. She deserved an explanation and an apology, which I gave her. The merger will proceed, it's good business regardless of personal connections. As for my mother..." He exhaled slowly. "We're not speaking. Julian is handling the transition of her responsibilities at the company." "You're cutting her out completely?" Ethan nodded. "What she did was unforgivable. She knew you were pregnant with her grandchildren and deliberately kept that information from me. She manipulated my life, my happiness, my future, our future, to suit her vision." Mara was quiet for a long moment, her fingers absently stroking Elijah's cheek. "She's still their grandmother. Biology doesn't entitle her to a relationship with them," Ethan said, an edge to his voice. "No," Mara agreed. "But someday they might want to know her. Just as they'll want to know the whole truth about us. The truth. That their parents had loved each other once. That manipulation and misunderstanding had driven them apart. That they'd found each other again through crisis, not choice." "What will we tell them?" Ethan asked softly. "The truth," Mara replied. "When they're old enough. That their father didn't abandon them, he just didn't know. That sometimes love gets interrupted by circumstance. That families come in all forms." Ethan's throat tightened. "I did love you, Mara. That wasn't a lie." Her eyes met his, vulnerable for the first time since his arrival. "I loved you too. That's why it hurt so much when I thought you'd chosen everything else over us." A nurse appeared in the doorway, interrupting the moment. "Ms. Collins? Dar. Patel would like to speak with both of you about the twins' progress." The conversation about feelings would have to wait. For now, there were medical updates to digest, feeding schedules to learn, discharge plans to consider. The business of keeping two tiny humans alive took precedence over healing adult hearts. Later that evening, after Mara had fallen asleep in the recliner beside the bassinets, Ethan sat alone in the dim light of the NICU, watching his children breathe. His son's tiny fingers curled around his index finger with surprising strength. "I promise you," he whispered to Elijah, "I will never let anyone separate us again. Not my mother, not my work, not anything. You and your sister are the most important people in my world now." Elijah's eyes, still newborn blue but with flecks that hinted at darkening to Mara's brown, blinked slowly, regarding his father with what Ethan chose to interpret as solemn acceptance. In that moment, Ethan Blackwood, feared in boardrooms, celebrated in business journals, made a different kind of deal, to become worthy of the title father. To earn back Mara's trust, however long it took. To rebuild on truth what had been destroyed by lies. It would be the hardest contract of his life to fulfill. 2 weeks after the twins' birth, the neonatologist declared them ready for discharge. Elijah's breathing had stabilized. Noelle had gained almost a pound. Both were feeding well and maintaining their body temperature. It was time to go home. But whose home? The question hung between Ethan and Mara as they dressed the twins in matching going-home outfits, soft organic cotton in gender-neutral yellow, sizes preemie that still swallowed their tiny frames. "Your apartment has more space," Mara said practically, securing Noelle's hat. "And you've had the nursery set up." It was true. While the twins were in the NICU, Ethan had transformed his rented penthouse's second bedroom into a fully equipped nursery. 2 cribs. A comfortable glider. A changing table stocked with diapers so small they seemed made for dolls. "But they need their mother," Ethan countered. "And you need recovery time. Your apartment is familiar territory for you." Mara bit her lip, hesitating. "My place is a 1-bedroom walk-up on the 3rd floor. No elevator. 2 cribs won't fit in the bedroom with my bed." They'd been circling this conversation for days, neither willing to broach the obvious solution, living together. Not as lovers, but as co-parents sharing the exhausting, exhilarating work of keeping premature twins alive. "Stay with me," Ethan said finally, carefully wrapping Elijah in a soft blanket. "Just until we figure out a permanent arrangement. The penthouse has 3 bedrooms, 1 for you, 1 for me, 1 for them. A nurse to help overnight. No stairs to climb while you're healing." Mara's hand stilled on Noelle's tiny feet. "Ethan, I can't just move in with you. What would people think?" "Since when do you care what people think?" he asked with a gentle smile. "Since tabloids started printing stories about the billionaire's secret family," she retorted. "Since my mother started getting calls from reporters. Since my co-workers began treating me like I'd won some twisted lottery instead of nearly losing my children to premature birth." Ethan's smile faded. "I'm sorry about the press. Julian's working on legal measures to protect your privacy." "It's not just the press," Mara sighed. "It's everything. 3 weeks ago, I was a single mother preparing to raise twins alone. Now you're here, buying cribs, hiring nurses, talking about moving to Atlanta. It's a lot to adjust to." "I understand," Ethan said softly. "But the offer stands. No pressure. No expectations beyond co-parenting. Just practical support while we find our footing." Mara looked down at Noelle, then at Elijah in Ethan's arms. 2 impossibly small beings depending on them to get this right. 2 weeks, she said finally. "We'll try it for 2 weeks. But I have conditions." "Name them." "You continue therapy," Mara stated firmly. "What your mother did, the manipulation, the isolation. That's going to have lasting effects. You need to process it properly." Ethan nodded. He'd already begun sessions with a trauma specialist Julian recommended. Second, Mara continued, we establish clear boundaries. We're not a couple. We're co-parents. That means separate bedrooms, separate lives outside of childcare. Agreed, Ethan said, though something in his chest tightened at the formality of it. Finally, her voice softened, we promise honesty. Even when it's uncomfortable. No more silence, no more assumptions. If this arrangement isn't working, we say so. Complete transparency, Ethan agreed. Always. A nurse entered with discharge paperwork and 2 infant car seats. Ready to take these little fighters home? Home. Such a simple word for such a complicated concept. 3 hours later, they were settled in Ethan's penthouse. The twins, exhausted from the journey, slept soundly in their cribs. Mara sat on the nursery floor, organizing tiny clothes into drawers. Ethan leaned against the doorframe, watching. We still haven't officially named them, he said quietly. The birth certificates are temporary. Mara looked up, her hands stilling on a stack of onesies. I've been waiting for you, she admitted. They're your children too. You should have a say. Something warm unfurled in Ethan's chest. Do you have ideas? For him, she nodded toward Elijah's crib, I was thinking Elijah. It means steadfast. She smiled softly. He's fought so hard to breathe since his first moment. It seems fitting. Elijah, Ethan repeated, testing the name. It felt right, substantial. A name with backbone. I like it. What about her? Mara hesitated. I thought. Noel. It means renewal. Her eyes met his. Because everything changed when they arrived. Elijah and Noel, Ethan said, the names settling into his heart like they'd always been there. Elijah Thomas and Noel Grace? Thomas for your grandfather? Mara asked, surprising him with her remembrance of a story he'd shared months ago, about the only Blackwood who'd valued family over fortune. And Grace for your grandmother, Ethan replied, recalling the woman whose insulin rationing had inspired Mara's career. A small smile curved Mara's lips. Elijah Thomas Blackwood and Noel Grace Blackwood. They sound like names that could belong anywhere, boardrooms or community clinics. Both, Ethan said firmly. They can be both, if they choose. Later that evening, after the night nurse had arrived and Mara had retired to her room, exhausted from the day's events, Ethan sat alone on his balcony. The Atlanta skyline glittered before him, but his thoughts were on the 3 people sleeping inside. His phone buzzed with a text from Julian. Board meeting tomorrow at 10. Your mother is insisting on attending. How do you want to handle it? Ethan considered his options. He could delay the confrontation, conducting the meeting remotely. He could ban Victoria from attending altogether. Or he could face her directly, on his terms. He typed his reply. I'll be there. Via secure video link. Have security ready if she becomes disruptive. Julian responded immediately. Are you sure? It's going to be volatile. Ethan glanced through the glass doors toward the nursery where his children slept. I'm sure. It's time to redefine the Blackwood legacy. Starting tomorrow. Thank you for staying with me through this emotional journey. If you're enjoying the story of Ethan and Mara's unexpected path to parenthood, please show your support by hitting the like button and subscribing to Mr. Stevens Stories. Your engagement helps our community grow, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's continue with the confrontation that will change the Blackwood legacy forever. The board meeting began precisely at 10 a.m., Charleston time. Ethan joined via secure video link, the nursery visible in the background, a deliberate choice. 14 board members sat around the mahogany table in Blackwood Tower. Victoria occupied her usual seat at the opposite end from where Ethan would normally sit. Julian called the meeting to order. Before we address the agenda, Mr. Blackwood has an announcement. All eyes turned to the screen. Ethan straightened, his expression composed. As you're all aware, recent events have necessitated changes to my personal and professional arrangements. I'll be working primarily from Atlanta for the foreseeable future, though I'll return to Charleston monthly for in-person meetings. Victoria's voice cut through the murmurs. This is completely unacceptable. Your place is here, leading the company in person. My place, Ethan replied evenly, is with my children. And modern technology makes physical location largely irrelevant to effective leadership. These circumstances could have been handled discreetly, Victoria insisted, her expression tight. There was no need to humiliate Caroline, jeopardize the merger, or create this public spectacle. Ethan's jaw tightened. By circumstances, I assume you mean the fact that I have newborn twins? Children you knew about for months and deliberately kept from me? A ripple of shock moved through the board members. Victoria's face paled slightly. That is a personal matter, she said stiffly. Not appropriate for a board meeting. On the contrary, Ethan countered. Your interference directly impacted company operations. You instructed my executive assistant, a company employee, to intercept communications, delete messages, and lie about my whereabouts. You used company resources to manipulate my personal life, which affected my decision-making capacity as CEO. Victoria's eyes narrowed. You have no proof of these wild accusations. Julian slid a folder across the table. Actually, we do. Sworn affidavits from Mr. Blackwood's assistant, the penthouse doorman, and the receptionist, all confirming they acted on your direct orders to isolate Mr. Blackwood from Ms. Collins. The board chairman, Thomas Richardson, opened the folder with a frown. These are serious allegations, Victoria. I acted in the best interests of the company, Victoria insisted. This relationship was a distraction. The merger with Westridge Industries represented a historic opportunity. An opportunity that remains intact, Ethan interjected. Senator Westridge and I spoke yesterday. The business case for the merger stands on its own merits, regardless of personal connections. Victoria's surprise was evident. You spoke with Edward? Unlike you, Mother, I believe in direct communication. Caroline deserved my personal apology, which she graciously accepted. And Senator Westridge is a businessman first, he recognizes the value our companies create together. The board chairman cleared his throat. What exactly are you proposing, Ethan? 3 things, Ethan replied. First, I will continue as CEO, working remotely with monthly in-person meetings. Second, Victoria Blackwood will resign from the board, effective immediately. Third, the company will establish a comprehensive ethics policy prohibiting interference in employees' personal lives. Silence fell over the boardroom. Victoria sat motionless, her face a mask. You cannot remove me, she finally said, voice dangerously quiet. I hold 22% of voting shares. And I hold 34%, Ethan countered. With Julian's 6% and Chairman Richardson's 8%, we have a clear majority. The chairman studied the documents before him, then looked up at the screen. For the record, Ethan, are your children well? The unexpected question momentarily softened Ethan's expression. Yes, thank you. Born 6 weeks early, but growing stronger every day. Richardson nodded, then turned to Victoria. I've known you for 30 years, Victoria. I respected your late husband, and I've respected your business acumen. But this crosses every line of professional and personal ethics. He closed the folder decisively. I support Ethan's proposals. All 3 of them. One by one, the board members voiced their agreement. Victoria sat immobile, watching decades of control slip away. When the vote concluded, she rose without a word and walked to the door. There, she paused, turning back to face the screen. You'll regret this, she said softly. Choosing sentimentality over legacy. No, Mother, Ethan replied. I'm redefining legacy. Not as wealth or power, but as integrity. As presence. As love. The door closed behind her with a quiet click that somehow echoed with finality. Julian exhaled slowly. Well, that was relatively civilized. The real fallout will come later, Ethan said grimly. Make sure her access to all systems is revoked immediately. Already done, Julian confirmed. And Ethan, congratulations. Both on the twins and on finally standing up to her. A small cry from behind Ethan drew his attention. He glanced over his shoulder to see Mara entering the nursery, moving to Noelle's crib. I have to go, he told the board. Family needs me. He ended the call before anyone could respond, rising to join Mara at their daughter's side. How did it go? She asked quietly, lifting Noelle to her shoulder. She's out, Ethan replied simply. No more interference. Mara studied his face. Are you okay? Was he? He'd just severed ties with his only living parent. Rewritten his family's power structure. Chosen a path his father would have considered unconscionable. I'm better than okay, he realized aloud. For the first time in my life, I'm making choices based on what matters, not what's expected. Mara's expression softened. Your daughter needs changing. Want to practice your diapering skills? Ethan laughed, the sound surprising them both. Absolutely. Though I warn you, my technique is still developing. That's okay, Mara said, passing Noelle to him. So are we. The weeks blurred into a rhythm of feedings, diaper changes, pediatrician visits, and precious stolen moments of sleep. Ethan and Mara settled into an unexpected domesticity, passing babies between meetings, trading off night shifts despite the nurse's help, celebrating tiny milestones like first smiles and improved weight gain. 1 month after the twins came home, Ethan found Mara on the balcony at dawn, cradling Elijah against her chest as she watched the sunrise over Atlanta. Couldn't sleep, he asked, joining her with a cup of coffee. He was fussy, she replied, accepting the mug with her free hand. I think he's going through a growth spurt. Ethan studied his son's peaceful face, now fuller than the fragile premature features he'd first seen. He has your determination. Mara smiled. And your stubbornness. The easy comment hung between them, acknowledgement of shared traits, shared DNA, shared responsibility. Of a connection that transcended their complicated history. The 2-week trial period is long past, Ethan said carefully, voicing what they'd both avoided discussing. How do you feel about our arrangement? Mara sipped her coffee, taking her time to answer. It's working better than I expected, she admitted. The twins are thriving. We're managing to co-parent without conflict. Your work hasn't suffered. But? Ethan prompted, sensing her hesitation. But it's confusing, she continued. For me, at least. We're living like a family without being one. Sharing responsibility without sharing other things. Other things, Ethan repeated softly. Mara met his eyes directly. I trusted you once, Ethan. Completely. I imagined a future with you. Then it seemed like you discarded me without a second thought. Yes, I know now that wasn't what actually happened, but the pain was real. The abandonment was real. I understand, Ethan said, his throat tight. And now we're raising children together, she continued. Living under the same roof. Sometimes I catch myself forgetting that we're not together. Then I remember how easily it all fell apart before. Ethan took a deep breath. What do you need, Mara? If you want your own place, I'll help you find something perfect for you and the twins. If you want me to move out, I will. Whatever makes this easier for you. Mara looked down at Elijah, her finger tracing the curve of his cheek. That's just it. I don't know what I want. Part of me wants to protect myself, keep those walls up. Another part remembers how good we were together, before everything imploded. We can take it slow, Ethan suggested. One day at a time. We have twins, Mara laughed softly. Nothing about this is slow. He smiled, acknowledging the truth of her words. Then maybe we just be honest about where we are. I still have feelings for you, Mara. That never changed. But I understand your hesitation, and I respect it. No pressure. No expectations. Just, possibility. Mara considered this, her eyes on the sunrise painting Atlanta's skyline in gold and pink. Possibility, she repeated. I can work with that. Inside, Noelle began to cry, her wail carrying through the baby monitor. I'll get her, Ethan said, rising. At the door, he paused. For what it's worth, I think we're doing pretty well, considering. Mara's smile was small but genuine. We are, aren't we? Who would have thought an interrupted wedding and premature twins would lead to this? Not exactly the conventional path, Ethan agreed. Since when have either of us been conventional? Mara countered, her eyes warming with something that looked remarkably like affection. It wasn't love rekindled, not yet. But as Ethan went to tend to their daughter, he felt something he hadn't experienced in months, hope. Not just for co-parenting success, but for the possibility of more. One honest conversation, one diaper change, one sleepless night at a time. 6 months later, Elijah and Noelle celebrated their first checkup without developmental concerns. Their pediatrician proclaimed them caught up despite their premature start, a milestone that warranted celebration. Ethan and Mara invited Julian and Renee to the penthouse for dinner. The twins, now pudgy and alert at 7 months old, presided over the gathering from their high chairs, accepting adoration as their due. They look like real babies now, not those alien creatures you brought home, Renee teased, tickling Noelle's chin. Elijah has your eyes, Ethan, Julian observed, offering the boy a soft toy. But Mara's smile. And Noelle has Mara's curls coming in, Ethan added, smoothing his daughter's wispy hair. But my mother's chin, unfortunately. A brief silence fell at the mention of Victoria. In the months since her removal from the board, she'd retreated to the Blackwood summer house in Martha's Vineyard, maintaining a dignified public silence while privately refusing all contact. Have you heard from her? Julian asked carefully. Ethan shook his head. Not directly. Her attorneys send periodic communications about her financial interests in the company, but nothing personal. Do you think she'll ever want to meet them? Renee asked, glancing between the twins. Mara and Ethan exchanged a look, one of those wordless communications they developed over months of shared parenthood. That would require an apology and accountability, Mara said gently. Neither of which Victoria seems capable of offering. But we'd consider it, Ethan added. For the twins' sake. Everyone deserves to know their history, even the complicated parts. After dinner, while Renee helped Mara bathe the twins and Julian took a business call, Ethan stepped onto the balcony for a moment of quiet. The Atlanta skyline had become familiar, comforting in a way Charleston's historic silhouette never had been. This city represented choice, not obligation. Freedom, not legacy. The balcony door slid open behind him. Mara joined him, 2 glasses of wine in hand. They're down, she said, passing him a glass. Renee's fascinating tales of hospital administration apparently make excellent bedtime stories. Ethan laughed. Whatever works. They stood in companionable silence, watching the city lights. 6 months of shared parenthood had created a comfortable intimacy between them, not romantic, exactly, but deeply connected. Julian asked when I'm moving back to Charleston, Ethan said finally. The board is hinting that remote leadership was fine during the twins' early months, but they expect me back eventually. Mara's fingers tightened on her glass. And what did you tell him? That my home is here now, Ethan replied simply. That I found something in Atlanta I never had in Charleston. The world's best barbecue? Mara suggested, a teasing lilt to her voice. Ethan turned to face her. A real life. With real connections. With two amazing children who deserve a present father. With you. Her smile faded, replaced by something more vulnerable. Ethan. I'm not pushing, he assured her quickly. I know we've been taking it one day at a time. I just wanted you to know that I've made my choice, regardless of what happens between us. I'm staying in Atlanta. For Elijah and Noel. And yes, for the barbecue. That drew a laugh from her, easing the tension. The separate apartment I looked at last week. I'm not taking it. It was Ethan's turn to be surprised. You're not. Mara shook her head. This arrangement works. The twins are thriving. We're managing to co-parent effectively. And if I'm honest. She took a deep breath. I like having you here. They need their father. And I like not doing this alone. It wasn't a declaration of love. It wasn't even a promise of romance. But coming from Mara, guarded, careful Mara who'd been hurt so deeply, it was significant. So we continue as we are? Ethan clarified. With one adjustment, Mara replied, setting down her wineglass. I think it's time we try something. She stepped closer, her hand rising to his cheek. Ethan remained perfectly still, afraid to break the moment. Then Mara stretched up on tiptoes and pressed her lips to his, tentative at first, then with growing certainty. When they finally broke apart, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. Are you sure? No, Mara admitted with a soft laugh. But I'm tired of living in fear of what might go wrong. You've proven yourself these past months, Ethan. Not with grand gestures, but with consistency. With presence. With honesty. I still go to therapy every Tuesday, he said, a smile tugging at his lips. I know. I mark it on the calendar and make sure I'm home with the twins. His heart expanded at this simple evidence of her support. So what does this mean for us? Mara stepped back slightly, her eyes meeting his. It means we try. Slowly. Intentionally. With full awareness of our history and the stakes involved. It means we build something new, not what we had before, but something stronger. I'd like that, Ethan said softly. Inside, the baby monitor lit up with Elijah's fussing. Mara smiled. Duty calls. As they moved together toward the nursery, Ethan reflected on the journey that had brought them here. An interrupted wedding. A desperate phone call. Twins born 6 weeks early. A mother's manipulation exposed. Months of rebuilding trust, one small action at a time. Not the path he would have chosen. But standing in the nursery doorway, watching Mara lift their son into her arms, seeing Noel sleeping peacefully in her crib, Ethan knew with absolute certainty, he was exactly where he belonged. Love hadn't returned through grand gestures. It had survived through daily choices. Two people, once divided by silence, now spoke carefully, because two lives were listening. And perhaps, in that careful speaking, they would find their way back to each other, stronger than before. Thank you for joining me for this story about second chances, family, and the power of truth. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to Mr. Stephen's Stories and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Your support means everything to this channel. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I promise to read and reply to all comments. If someone left your life because of a lie planted by others, would you give love a second chance? Share your perspective and join our storytelling community. Until next time, remember that sometimes the most unexpected interruptions lead to our greatest blessings.